Honourable Chris Tremaine.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It gives me great pleasure to speak on Te Ururoa Flavel's Gambling Harm Bill this evening, and to counter some of the hyperbole from the opposition who have decided to vote against this very worthy bill. I just want to quote Darian Fenton, because Ms Fenton used some statistics which were very pertinent to this debate. Ms Fenton said that poorer communities in New Zealand have 1 to 75 pokie machines present in them, compared to wealthier communities in this community, where she quoted have 1 to 465 pokie machines as a proportion in those communities. She went on to say that poorer communities have 6 times the exposure to pokie machines than wealthier communities. So at the very heart of Te Ururoa Flavel's bill that is before the House tonight allows communities the voluntary choice to actually change that, to take those venues from those poorer communities and to put them in different locations. Now, the opposition, the Greens and Labor, are saying that they are opposed to allowing the movement of pokie venues from poor communities and putting them into other communities. Shame on the opposition. It is appalling. Appalling. It is voluntary for councils to be able to do this, and we are providing the opportunity. Because here's the situation, Mr Speaker. If you are a pokie venue with 18 machines in a poor community, guess what? Even with a sinking lid policy in your community, you can't move, even if the community wants you to go. Why? Because if you move, you lose your business. You can't go anywhere. So what do? They put their roots down and they stay there. Oh, she says it's a lot of nonsense. That's the fact. These are the stats that the opposition quoted, Mr Speaker, and they want to vote against it. Why? They were looking for a reason, the opposition were looking for a reason to vote against this very good bill. That's the fact. Another key point of Te Ururoa Flavel's bill is that a regulation-making power to allow the distribution of funds into communities. That allows us to go out and sensibly ask communities how much of the funds that are being distributed in communities are distributed on a national basis. Not to take just an arbitrary 80-20 rule, because there are organisations out there in New Zealand, Mr Speaker, Rescue Helicopter Trust, St John's through New Zealand, who benefit from national contributions. For us to just arbitrarily go out there and deliver 80-20 is not sensible. So we've made a commitment, a regulation-making power which will allow us to distribute those funds throughout New Zealand, but to go out and actually consult on a sensible basis. It's my commitment to the House that we will do that. We will do that. Well, it'd be interesting to watch the opposition vote against that particular thing as well, as we look to distribute funds throughout New Zealand. And here's the third thing that the opposition want to vote against tonight, Mr Speaker, is harm minimisation. We've taken what is a... they are voting against the opportunity for a minister in this House to have a regulation-making power which simplifies the process to implement harm minimisation technology. That's what it does, Mr Speaker. It simplifies the ability for a minister to put sensible technology across the industry. That's really interesting. These guys that want to vote against harm minimisation, that's what they're doing. The Greens and Labor are voting against harm minimisation. They're voting against taking pokie machines out of poor communities. That's what is happening, Mr Speaker. Shame on you. And they're doing it for politics. They don't like it. That's the fact. Mr Speaker, I just want to back up the truck slightly. This government, the national government, came into this period saying that we would review the policy around Class 4 gambling, and that's a commitment that we've undertaken. We also said that we would agree to support Te Ururoa Flavel's bill to the committee stage of the House. We've done that. And what we've done is we also set a number of key goals for reform in this sector. The first was to enhance the protections for problem gamblers. The second, to increase transparency and to address conflicts of interest, because there have been rorts in this sector. No one's denying that. We've said we want to develop a way for gambling proceeds to be genuinely or generally distributed in the area in which they were raised. We also want to simplify compliance for societies and venues and DIA. By simplifying the process, make compliance by venues better, improve the transparency. And we also want to increase the proportion of proceeds that the community receives. So what we've tried to do, Mr Speaker, is find a balanced way through this process. Find a way where we could support parts of Te Rūroa Flavel's bill, which actually delivered on those core objectives. And at the same time, announced in conjunction with Te Rūroa Flavel, through negotiation, some of the other things that would deliver on those core objectives. And so we've done that. We announced in conjunction a range of initiatives that will deliver on those things, which I'm really pleased to do. And the other thing that we've announced just in the last 3 weeks, which goes to the heart of problem gambling and looking after those people that do suffer from this addiction, is a $55.3 million strategy over 3 years. This is the fourth strategy, which actually goes to the heart of trying to help those families that have a problem gambler in them. Look, because everybody in this House wants that to happen. So there's $20.5 million for public health services focused on prevention and education awareness. There's $6.6 million in that strategy for research and evaluation. And there's $25.3 million for frontline intervention. So that's a significant strategy to help those people most in harm. So my plea, actually, to people out there who have a member of their family who are addicted to problem gambling is to actually use these services, to refer that member of the family to those services, Mr Speaker. So, Mr Speaker, in achieving those goals that I set out, increasing the proportion of proceeds to the community receipts, simplifying compliance for societies, venues and for DIA, for developing a way for gambling proceeds to be generally distributed in the area they were raised, to enhance protections for problem gamblers and to increase transparency and address conflicts of interest. We found a way, through working with Te Rūroa Flavel, to achieve 3 of those key goals. And I just want to highlight those excellent initiatives in the bill, because I don't believe for a minute that the bill in those 3 areas has been watered down. I think, in fact, we've enhanced the bill and we are delivering opportunities in those 3 areas for particularly harm minimisation technology, which I talked about before. The regulation-making power actually makes it easier for us to implement harm technology across the sector, not licence by licence, and Labor and the Greens are voting against that. We've also implemented a way for venues to be transferred out of poor areas. Ms Fenton talked about the statistics, the numbers, the extra numbers of venues that are in poor areas. They, on the opposition, are now going to vote against an opportunity to move venues out of poor areas. Shame on you. Shame on you. And we've also got a sensible method of looking seriously at how we can distribute funds back into those communities where they were raised. A regulation-making power, a discussion document will allow us to do that and to land that in a position where I think the majority of funds will end up back in those communities. So I think there's some great opportunities to derive from this bill in conjunction with the other initiatives which I've also announced at the same time. Those initiatives, Mr Speaker, is that more funding will be aimed to go back to the community. For every 1% that we can lift the funds back into communities, we put another $8.5 million back into communities. Another $8.5 million. No doubt the opposition will vote against that, because these are sports clubs. These are all sorts of organisations who benefit from this, and we will be able to help move that on. Mr Speaker, we've also looking to lower compliance, increase the transparency, and also improve the conflict of interest provisions. This all helps. Mr Speaker, I'm proud to be here tonight supporting Te Rua Flavel and working together in partnership to improve Class 4 gambling. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
The debate has now concluded, and there are two questions, the first regarding the amendments from the Select Committee, then the question on the second reading. So I'll put the first question, and that question is that the amendments recommended by the Commerce Committee by majority be agreed to. Those of that opinion, a point of order?
For personal vote?
Oh, we haven't got to that stage yet.
Oh, well.
Let me... the question is that the amendments recommended by the Commerce Committee by majority be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. No. A personal vote will now be called. So ring the bells. The ayes will go to the right, the noes will go to the left, and abstentions will come to the table. The teller for the ayes will be Jamie Lee Ross. Tellers for the noes will be Honourable Ruth Dyson. Abstentions will be recorded by the clerk and proxy votes must be marked as such.